Welcome to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about Replenishing Care and their PMF machine, make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner. I'm your host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, won a 1981 national championship ring with the Indiana Hoosiers when they beat North Carolina 63-50. He combined with Isaiah Thomas for 26 points. Help me welcome to the Grueling Truth, Steve Risley.
Now the applause is overwhelming. Yeah, I got some applause today. How about that?
Well, it's just because Lukas is kissing your ass.
I know. That's all right. Somebody's got to do it. Certainly isn't you. Hey, Mike, how you doing today? We got a big show today, don't we?
Yeah, I guess. I'm doing great.
What's the standings in the poll so far? I'm sure you looked at that before you called.
Poll. That's just about
the poll you ran on. Who did more damage to baseball?
Oh, well, there's 91% inbreds who think that Barry Bonds and those guys did more. But
okay.
What? It's just a point that Pete Rose fans usually aren't the most intelligent people.
No, that's true. Let me just cover all the sports in a nutshell real quick.
You realize all three of you guys fall into that category that you're all three Pete Rose fans, and you just basically said that, that was
I'm not a Pete Rose fan. I'm not. We'll talk.
All right, let's go ahead and before
wait a minute. I got to cover the sports first. We always do that real quick. Wait, here's the sports. Nothing. No soccer. Nothing. Tennis is going on. Let's move on.
Now, I would like to bring up the fact that soccer-wise, I'm destroying you guys on the picks, and I just want to let you all know.
You are.
Croatia will upset France and win. So.
You know what? I'm not betting against you again because for a guy who calls soccer a sissy sport, you know a hell of a lot about it to make the correct picks all the time.
I just know about your countries. I know that when the chips are down, England as a country in sports, politics, war, everything, they usually need somebody to help them out in the end if they're going to win. So they didn't have that in the World Cup. So
you're right.
All right, let's go ahead and introduce our panel today. We'll call him that because if I call him co-host, Steve will have it. Yeah, hissy fit.
Well, they're not co-hosts. You shouldn't call them what they're not.
Okay.
We shouldn't call Ty Thomas scoundrel.
He's already, feeling a little threatened. But first up, we've got.
They're both smarter than me.
Lukas Weese. How you doing, Lukas?
Mike, it's Friday. I'm doing well. How you doing? Glad you got your soccer picks right.
Well,
I got France on Sunday. I got France.
Yeah, well, I figured that because you're really good at picking losers. Next up, we've got Josh Raymond Castro, who still has not shortened to just two names the way I've requested, but we still had him back. How you doing, Josh?
Hey, I'm ready to get in here and talk some baseball.
All right, so the topic today is should Pete Rose be in the Baseball Hall of Fame? What I would like to do is this. I would like for each one of you to have 1 minute to make your case for why he should or shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. So a minute means you got to keep it short, Steve. So we'll start off with Josh.
All right. So first, I do believe that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think that all starts with getting him reinstated back into baseball. The reason I think that is because, all of his gambling problems came when he was a manager. And, as far as we know, he wasn't compromised as a player at all. And he set some amazing records. A lot of those records, still stand today. And, for the most part, I think what he did change the game of baseball. Now, as far as a manager, I mean, he served his time. He got the hit back then. The hard part is that, they still haven't reinstated him. And I don't believe that, it's been a very long time. I think the guy's learned his lesson. He did some amazing things in baseball. And I think it's just time that we take it for what it is. The Hall of Fame isn't supposed to be this, this crazy entity where we just don't let anyone in. I mean, he changed baseball. That's what he did.
All right, Lukas?
So I do believe that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. You understand that one of the most impressive records was he got 4,256 hits. That means in 20 seasons, he had 200 hits. That's just incredible. And when you think that everyone who has over 3,000 hits that who's in the Hall of Fame that didn't use PEDs or who's either active or just retired, like Jeter, Beltre, Ichiro, Poole, they're all in the Hall of Fame. Look, the Hall of Fame is about athletic accomplishment. It's not the Hall of Statehood. It's not the Hall of Statehood. There are people in the Hall of Fame who've done a lot of unethical, bad stuff, but they're still in the Hall of Fame because what they did on the baseball field.
Give me one that bet on baseball that's in the Hall of Fame.
Well,
the whole thing, he wasn't a player, you know?
He was a player. I hate to tell you this, but the betting slips are in 1986 and 1987. He was a player manager. All right, Steve?
Mike, you're absolutely right. I read through a lot of this, and I read a lot of reports and things like that went on this. And obviously the finding of what Bertinelli's diary that he found pretty well says that Rose probably bet as a player as well as a manager. Definitely as a manager. But there's a lot of indication that says, and I don't think they ever proved any of that, but where there's smoke, there's generally fire. And under Major League Baseball rule number 21, any person, player, coach, manager, anything who's caught betting again in the game of baseball is automatically banned for life. It's a blatant rule. I mean, it's a very clearly stated rule. I don't think the question here is whether Pete Rose is guilty of gambling on baseball. But I do think that there is a separation of somewhere along the line about your personal character and your athletic ability. And I tend to agree with Luke's comments that it's damaging what he did to the game of baseball, no doubt. It damaged himself. But given that said, I would advocate that he go in just under a law of he's been punished. He's been punished severely and dearly. His athletic records and accomplishments can't be denied. And he can be banned from baseball. And this is what I don't know, and hopefully somebody will educate me on this. Being banned from baseball says you're being banned from the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Because does it okay? So I do not know that. I asked that question legitimately. I don't know if that says one begots the other. I know that he could never put on a baseball uniform again, but I didn't know if that says Major League Baseball has the right to ban him from the Hall of Fame as well. I think he should go back in just on the fact that he's done his penance. And he still holds the records.
What about Shoeless
Joe Jackson? He should have too. I mean, there's just not enough people arguing his case.
Yeah, Shoeless Joe Jackson did nothing wrong is pretty much what all the proof would say there. But you've already got a precedent. And the problem is this. You talked about baseball rule number 21, which says that if you bet on baseball, and when you sign the contract, it says that. Right. It doesn't say that if you did steroids or you beat up your wife, that you'll be indefinitely suspended from baseball.
You're exactly right.
If you gamble. And I just don't understand why people don't get this. I mean, it blows my mind that people make this.
I didn't use all my minute.
Yeah, you did.
So my point is,
22 seconds.
Okay, here's another 13 seconds. There's no denying he was a criminal in the law of baseball, but I think as anybody gets an opportunity, most criminals get an opportunity for parole at some point down the road. I think at this point, Pete Rose should be considered for parole. That's it. I cannot argue with the fact
why do you get parole?
He can't be argued that he did it and do it, and he got his punishment. Now I think it's time to revisit it.
Why do you get parole?
And see if.
Why would somebody get parole? You get time off for good behavior?
I don't know the exact reasons why people get parole. I mean, I'm not a correctional officer or law officer. I would think good behavior has a lot to do with it. Sure.
Okay. But he denied this. He's
rehabilitation.
He hasn't apologized. He's denied it. He denied even betting at all for
He
20
came
years.
clean. He came clean in 2004.
He did
He
come
did
clean,
not
though.
come clean.
Yeah.
He never admitted
He
to
did. He
betting
wrote it
on the Reds.
On a
He-
talk show
in
in 2007, he came clean.
In 2004, he did not admit to betting on the Reds, did he?
Yeah, in 2004 and 2007, he came clean.
Under
Okay.
bars.
So I guess since he admitted it, he should be allowed to do whatever the hell he wants. Now, then the problem is, he did irreparable. Betting does irreparable harm to any sport that you're betting on. Correct? I mean, because the most important
If you're
thing,
participating,
most of the
I
most.
mean, if you're,
I didn't even get a minute, so go ahead. Just go ahead and talk the whole time.
no.
Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, this is the thing. It says in your contract that you can't go to the Hall of Fame. You can't be involved in baseball again. He admitted part of this. So now he's actually allowed to show up and do some stuff with baseball. He's just not allowed in the Hall of Fame. So basically, he's on probation now. And the thing is, this is a man that changed whether the Reds won or not. I mean, everybody misses the fact that 1985, 86, 87, the Reds were the second best team in their division. The games that he was giving up and losing could have been the difference between them going to the playoffs or not. And when you
No
look at
conclusive
it,
proof of that, Mike.
oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't say that he was
yeah.
giving up the games. The players weren't aware of a lot of what was going on with him.
Oh, the players
No,
weren't
And it just
aware.
he was a man.
I totally disagree with that. Just by the players that I know that I've talked to, everybody in Cincinnati questioned this. I mean, you used to listen
Well, I don't
to
think that
Sports
the
Talk
players
with Bob
didn't
Fernie.
know, but I don't think that the players were throwing the game. And as the manager,
Well,
you can
no.
make some moves there,
Wait a
but
second.
it comes down to the players.
Hold on. This is what I did. I wrote an article about this, and I looked into the box scores on the games he bet as opposed to the games he didn't bet. And there was only a handful of games where this dude, there's only a handful of games he didn't bet. And if you look at the way that game, or the way those games went, the way those games were played, he was obviously fixing the games. I mean, now he didn't he made it so he was saving everything he did for the next game because he was going to bet on it. Yes, that's throwing a game. I mean, if you look at this, hold on, let me pull this up because I wrote the article. I went back and I looked at every box score from every game. And I looked at the games where he bet on the Reds. Over a 2-month period during the 1987 season, Rose bet on the Reds to win almost every game they played. The key word is almost. Because what I went in there and I matched it up with the betting slips. There was 4 games he did not bet on. Those 4 games were this. June 20th, 1987, Braves versus the Reds. Bill Gullickson starts, gives up 7 runs. He gives up 7 runs in like 3 innings. They keep him in. They bring in Bill Landrum and Frank Williams, both guys that had ERAs of over 10. The Reds cut the lead to 8-6 after 7 innings. Instead of going to who he would normally go to in the 8th inning, he chose to bring in Bill Shear, who on June 20th entered that game with an ERA of almost 18. Well, actually, it was an ERA of over 12. All right? The next day, he had his best pitchers going. He had his entire bullpen ready, and he won his bet. July 16th, and there's a pattern here. Bill Gullickson had a rough 1987, especially the 2-month period.
Mike.
And Gullickson, 1987, gives up 7 runs before being pulled. Guess who replaces him?
Well, Mike.
Bill Shear. July 26th, Pete Rose doesn't bet on the Reds. Bill Gullickson's allowed to pitch the entire game and give up 6 runs. August 1st, 1987, Bill Gullickson pitches the entire game, gives up 6 runs, 15 hits. That isn't skewing the way a game is played. I mean, when you know that you're going to bet the game the next day and you save your best pitchers for the next day, you're giving that game up.
Mike, if I may interject, I mean, look, as a manager, there's no doubt that the gambling that he did, that's bad. Doesn't look good for the integrity of baseball. But as a player, did he gamble? Yes.
He bet on the games as a player. Lukas, there's like 30 games he bet on in 1986, and he played in 22.
But no evidence that he bet against the team. There was no evidence that he bet against the Reds.
Oh, my God. Do you not understand what gambling is? Gambling is
Well, I'll tell you this.
If I'm betting games a lot and I get in debt to a bookie, he owns my ass. He can make me throw a game when I'm managing or when I'm playing. And the thing is this, Pete Rose, in 1986, out of the 23 games that he bet on the Reds, he played, only in 8 of them.
I'll tell you this, Mike. I was reading an article on ESPN the other day, and one of the things that I really liked, it was talking about the Hall of Fame, was that, baseball's Hall of Fame should be a true story of baseball, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it should include all those players who changed the game of baseball. And and like I said, I'm the same thing.
Shamed?
Changed. I mean, look, I think Barry Bonds should be in there. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame based off their athletic abilities. And I think it needs to be the true story, not because they did something wrong, so we're going to put them in a permanent timeout. I'm not saying that what he did wasn't bad. I'm just saying that, his athletic ability speaks otherwise. He obviously deserves, based on his hits. You can't have a Hall of Fame without the hit king.
Okay.
But
is he the greatest hitter of all time?
And if I can build on to that, can I build on?
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Like, as I said earlier, I mean, you look at guys like, Hall of Fame. I made a list for myself.
You can't do that. You can't do that because right now all you are is a typical Republican or Democrat. Because when you're having a debate on the merits of somebody getting in, if you have to go and give me somebody else that did something worse or something as bad, then there's no merit for him.
No, but all I'm trying to say is, Mike, is I'm trying to paint a picture of you of the hypocrisy of the Baseball Hall of Fame. They've let in people that have had checkered paths.
Who did they let in that gambled on baseball?
Checkered path
that's the whole point. I think they should just let them all in.
What?
Checkered path is a little bit broader area.
If we talk three at a time,
a little bit
broader. But
fuck it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is anybody going to talk?
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Mike. You got the floor.
Lukas was the one talking. He brought up Ty Cobb or something and betting on baseball.
Every time somebody makes an argument to you, Mike, you turn around and go, is it betting on baseball? Okay, we're trying to tell you that there are a lot of people for a lot of different reasons who have made the Hall, not just betting on baseball, other things as well.
But you cannot
where do you draw the line?
Well, where I draw the line is this, Steve. They sign a contract that says if they bet on baseball, they're out. I don't know why this is ever an argument for anybody because it basically, there is nothing that says that if you beat up your wife or you beat up a handicapped guy that you don't get in the Hall of Fame. And this is the thing. What Rose did happened during games. It happened as a manager. It happened as a player. He signed a contract in every case stating this. And the thing is this. If he has a gambling addiction, you can't tell me he's not going to bet against his team. Because if you're addicted to gambling...
No conclusive evidence.
Huh?
No conclusive evidence.
There is conclusive evidence.
There's no conclusive evidence. Otherwise, we would have...
Well, Mike, I think that the whole thing is that, he shouldn't have anything to do with baseball. He's fired. He spent time in jail. It's like, at this point, I think he's not going to have another job with baseball. Him being in the Hall of Fame isn't going to give him a spot on the roster again, but it's just acknowledging his athletic accomplishments.
Okay. I think the Hall of Fame should be only for all-time greats, the greatest players that ever played the game. And I think there's a case.
Pete Rose is one of those.
He was a great singles hitter. He was a subpar defensive player, a subpar arm, didn't hit with power, didn't drive runs in, wasn't exceptionally fast. I mean, he was a great singles hitter.
So, Mike, are you trying to tell me that Pete Rose did not gamble on baseball, and you're just looking at the statistics?
No, I'm saying Yeah, I'm saying, put it like
in
this.
all-
If I had to put together a team of 25 guys that ever played baseball, where does Pete Rose fit in? Would you want him on your team?
100%.
Okay, so you'd want him lead off hitting for the greatest team ever. What position do you put him at?
That's a good one. That's a good.
I mean, there's no
That's a
place
good
to put him.
question.
I mean, this is my thing. I think that almost all Hall of Fames are complete BS because they're popularity contests. And with this, it would be a popularity contest because there is not one position on a baseball field that exists that Pete Rose would even be a top 10 player at that position or a top 20 player at that position. I mean, there's a reason why they moved him to every position. They were finding a place he could play.
It's still pretty remarkable that
in terms of his ability to
find them in position.
Looking at this, in 1999, he was selected to the MLB All-Century team. The committee came up with the top 100 greatest players in the past century. Pete was on that list and was selected as an outfielder on that team.
Yeah.
Therefore, baseball itself has recognized him as one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, they would recognize him no matter what because that's what public perception is. Can you tell me who was on that team in the outfield?
I don't want to sit here and read off the list of who they claim it's not the relevant part. This is just a Wikipedia or a lookup on Pete Rose. There's not looking at this entire all-century team. I just looked at him up to see what accolades he had won other than being the all-time singles or doubles or triples hits leader in baseball, which is a pretty high honor. It's right up there with leader in home runs, the strikeouts. I mean, it's one of the most revered records to own in the game of baseball. And if you call him just a singles hitter, that's fine. They only separate one hit out.
This is the thing, though. Do you realize how many outfielders were on that all-century team?
I would guess half of them because it's the most populated position in the game.
Right there, they listed him as one of the top 35 outfielders.
Okay, well, that's still a big achievement for the number of people that have played the game in the history of baseball.
When I look at the top 35, I would say maybe half of them are all-time greats. I mean, to me, all-time greats are what should be in the Hall of Fame. This is another discussion that we have on almost every show. But a Hall of Fame should be for all-time greats. Hank Aaron is an all-time great. You can't compare Pete Rose to Hank Aaron. I mean, Hank Aaron's a guy that had 3,700 hits, 756 home runs. I mean, the guy's batting average was – what was his batting average, Josh? Wasn't he like 320 or something lifetime?
Yeah, it was 320.
Yeah. And Pete Rose is a lifetime 300 hitter. And they also put Joe Jackson on that team with Pete Rose. And Joe Jackson's not.
But I'm saying, I think it really boils down to how you view the Hall of Fame. Are you viewing it as a history museum, that's telling the history of baseball, or are you viewing it as this shrine to sainthood? And either way you look at it, I can understand how you would see, if you're saying, okay, only the best players who never, did anything wrong get into the Hall of Fame, or if we're saying this is a history museum.
I never said that.
Because that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that guys like Joe Jackson should be in there, and I think I think that there are so many players who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think there's a lot of people in the Hall of Fame with a checkered past, But like you were saying, you're 100% correct. It is a popularity contest, and people are willing to overlook, person slights depending on how bad they perceive that thing to be, and allow them into the Hall of Fame. So I think what it boiled down to is that. Pete Rose, that was just a little too much of a slight for people to overlook, no matter how popular he was.
Well, I just think this. When you look at gambling on baseball, there's nothing that can destroy a sport quicker than that. As soon as people think that the game's not on the up and up, you don't have a crowd anymore. I mean, that's WWE, that's sports entertainment. And people today, I think the NFL, the NBA, loses fans just because of when you watch a game and LeBron James is playing and some weird stuff happens at the end, I mean, people doubt whether the game's for real or not. And Pete Rose, if you look at the Hall of Fame, the way it's set up, is a Hall of Fame baseball player. Now, I don't care what Pete Rose did off the field. I mean, even though, you had the sex with the 14-year-old girl in 1976 that he admitted to, he just thought she was 16. That should not keep him out of the Hall of Fame to me. That should put him in jail, but it shouldn't keep him out of the Hall of Fame. All I'm saying is when you sign a contract, and this is what this all comes back to me, when you sign a contract saying that if you bet on baseball, you're suspended forever. You signed that contract. You knew what it said. You did it anyways. So don't sit here and tell me, well, he knew what he did wrong and he admitted to it. He should get let go, because no, he shouldn't. He signed the contract. Maybe he should have been a man in 1989 and said, yeah, I did this, I'm sorry. Maybe he shouldn't have waited until 2004 and say that he didn't. We talked about 1999, the All-Century team. You remember the Jim Gray interview. He didn't sound like he was admitting anything. And
well, do you think that...
Hey, guys,
do you think that in 20 years...
Okay? Mike, plug me in somewhere that I can ask a couple questions, but I'm going to wait my turn patiently. But somewhere ask me to say, Steve, you have anything to say? Go ahead.
All right. Josh, say what you got to say.
Everybody's jumping over everybody.
All right. All I was going to say is, do you think that in 20 years, or maybe say even 30 years, do you think that, we'll look at the addition of Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame differently as time changes? Or do you believe personally that no matter amount of, time that passes, would you be willing to let him into the Hall of Fame?
I think anybody that disgraced the game the way he did. I mean, you got to remember, baseball went to crap, and the steroid thing came because steroids weren't even illegal for the players to use in 1998, I don't think. Not in Major League Baseball, at least. And baseball turned a blind eye to that and let them do it. So there's a case for Bonds.
Popularity.
But I think this, when you look at it, it says that for a reason. And the reason is this. You have to make an example of anybody that does this, because in the future, if you let him off, I mean, that sets a really bad precedent for your contract that everybody else signs that says you have to do this way. You cannot gamble on baseball. And when you go back on that contract that you wrote for that player and say, well, he bet on baseball and, that's really bad, but we're going to let him in anyways. Yeah, I don't think that's right. Steve?
Two questions. One is, Mike, do you think that in the statement that the detriment of betting on baseball to the game, do you think baseball today is still suffering from Pete Rose betting on baseball in the 80s?
I think this. I think baseball suffered from...
It's a yes or no question.
Yeah, I know, and you're going to get a yes.
Today it's still suffering. It's still suffering because Pete Rose bet on baseball in 1986.
Yes, it did, just like it is still suffering from a
strike.
So
does it today, though?
And it's still
does
suffering.
It
Yeah, baseball, if you look at the ratings of the 1990 or 1989 World Series, what you had, and this was a concurrent of things here, you had the gambling on baseball, which made baseball look bad. You had a player strike, which made baseball look bad. Hell, you lost the World Series. You come back from that, and then all of a sudden, from all this crap, you get all these guys hitting 70 home runs, and everybody's pumped up. Everybody's watching it again. And then it's brought down again because of the steroid use. And really, when you look at it, Barry Bonds was a guy that should be in the Hall of Fame for the way he played, but he shouldn't be in because of that. Because when we look at baseball today, it's turned into a niche regional sport. And the reason is I think from the mid-1980s, you also had, if you remember, early to mid-80s, you had the cocaine trials with the New York Mets, the Pittsburgh Pirates. So all this has been since the early 1980s is just a cluster, of a mess that people just got tired of. I don't think Pete Rose himself basically still hurts baseball today. I think it was all those guys from the Pittsburgh Pirates in the early 80s all the way through to steroid guys that hurt this.
Okay, so again, my original question is baseball suffering today because Pete Rose bet on baseball?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
okay.
I think
Second part of the question is,
go ahead.
Second part of the question. why did the commissioner, when he banned Pete Rose from life, said he could apply for reinstatement in 1 year? Why would he even offer that if the penalty Rule 21 says you're banned for life? Why would the commissioner come out and say
Rule number 21
you're banned for life
says
and you
you're
can't apply for
banned-
reinstatement in 1 year?
You're banned.
That's what his
indefinitely.
decision.
The rule says
That they said he couldn't. They offered him a chance to reapply. Therefore, he wasn't banned for life.
I know, because he's banned
He
indefinitely.
said you're banned for life by Rule 21. However, you can reapply in 1 year. That right there is smacks of corruption right there. The commissioner didn't uphold the law. It should have said, no reapply application. Don't apply. You can never apply. You can't come on a baseball field again. You're banned for life. But no, you can ban for life, but in 1 year you can apply for reinstatement.
Yeah, and I think this.
That diminishes everything right there.
Wait a second. So once
That's a
again,
good argument.
the blame goes back to Pete Rose because they gave him that, and the problem was this. Pete Rose still refused to admit he did anything wrong. Steve, if Pete Rose would have came out in 1989 and said, I did this, I was addicted to gambling, I bet on this, I never did it to
He'd be in the
hurt
Hall of
my
Fame.
team, he would be in the Hall of Fame today.
Sure,
He
no
would have
doubt.
been in 10 or 15 years
For
later.
sure.
This is
For
all
sure.
on
There's nobody
him.
doesn't argue that.
Well, I mean, that's the
But, I- we-
problem. Because the rule
Well, but they
says
offered
that
it to
you
him,
are...
Mike, they on a lifetime ban, they offered him reinstatement.
Yeah.
Baseball should have never
Because-
made that offer.
Wait a second.
Period.
Wait, they make the offer to... I mean, what you've got is this. Rule 21 says that you're indefinitely suspended. Indefinitely suspended.
No, it says you're suspended for life.
Does it? Is that what it says?
I had it earlier. I don't have it up anymore with the rules. You may say indefinitely. I thought it said you were banned. I mean, not participating in baseball for the rest of again, ever. But I don't know the exact verbiage of the rule, whether it says indefinitely suspended or not. But there's only 2 players that are on that list that have never. They're actually even on that list.
Yeah. Real quick, we got to take a commercial break before I forget it. We will be back in about a minute. Replenishing Technologies helps athletes of all levels train, recover, and perform at their absolute best. We do this by offering the PEMF 120, the world's leading pulsed electromagnetic field therapy device. Workouts, injury, and stress cause cells to lose their natural power. PEMF works like a battery charger, helping cells regain the power needed to dump toxins, take in oxygen and nutrients, and repair. 95% of athletes report less pain, increased range of motion, more energy, and they simply feel better after using PEMF 120. If you'd like to count yourself among that group, contact us at www.replenishingtechnologiesinc.com. All right, guys, we're back on Survive in Advance. I'm Mike Goodpaster with my co-host Steve Risley and our guest, Josh Raymond Castro, and of course the immortal Lukas Weese. We call him the Iditarod man. So Lukas, Lukas, I think it's been the longest since you've spoke.
Well, can I finish one statement?
Go ahead.
I want to finish one statement, then I'm done. So basically, in my opinion, what baseball did was when they banned Pete Rose for indefinite or life, by the way the commissioner worded it, much like a judge would say, he was given a life sentence with the opportunity for parole.
Yeah, and he didn't take it.
That's essentially what he said.
Yeah,
it's exact about what you can apply. Applying for reinstatement means you can apply for parole at some point in time. Okay? Yeah. So it wasn't by him saying that, I'm using his own words, he basically said your life with an opportunity for parole. And now's the opportunity after this length of period of time. It's time to consider parole.
Oh, my God. I would think that parole would have been, 15, 20, 25 years ago when he still was running around saying he did nothing wrong.
Well, maybe it's longer because he has never admitted that he's done anything wrong, but it still doesn't mean shouldn't be given an opportunity for reinstatement and an opportunity for parole.
I don't think so. I just don't see it because he decided he didn't want it.
That's how the judicial system works.
We're not talking about the judicial system. We're talking about baseball. Yeah.
Okay, but Mike, we also live in a society, and sports is in that society where athletes can redeem themselves, and the sports world forgives athletes. I mean, Mark McGwire now has a job in Major League Baseball with the Miami Marlins. I mean, different sport, but Michael Vick got a chance to play in the NFL after operating a dog ring. I mean, redemption does occur, and I think it's unfortunate. And look, I understand how, gambling can be a real problem to the integrity of baseball. But I just think that it's coming up to 30 years since he got banned. I mean, how long is just too long before baseball writers can literally say that this guy, for his athletic accomplishments, can be led into the Hall? Because Shoeless Joe Jackson briefly was on the ballot. He was involved in the 1919 Black Sox scandal. You have steroid users, known steroid users now, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, who are on the ballot. And I just think that it's, the fact that Pete Rose was misled with that opportunity for reinstatement is just sad. And for me, it's just, I think there's got to be a moment in time where we just got to say to ourselves, it happened. It's well into the past. Baseball, the performance of baseball now in the present isn't impacted by that in the past. Let's give this man the respect that he deserves for his athletic accomplishments on the field.
Lukas,
okay.
Lukas, you make a great point. Lukas makes a great point here. Baseball basically can make this go away. Baseball's had 30 years to have somebody break Pete Rose's record. Pete Rose's record goes away. He becomes inconsequential anymore to the game. They've had more than a career's lifetime span, 30 years, to have somebody else come out and hit one more hit than Pete Rose has, and Pete is no longer the all-time hit leader in baseball. That goes away. Pete Rose goes away because then there's no reason. If he's not the all-time hit leader in baseball, he goes away. Baseball couldn't do it in 30 years. They couldn't do it legitimately.
No, because it's a longevity record. I mean, most people...
They've had 30 years to have somebody be longevity.
Most people are not allowed to hang around batting 200 for years. I mean,
they've had 30 years to produce another 4,200 hit guy, and they could not get it done. That record probably is going to stand as long as Nolan Ryan strikeout record.
It's a longevity record. That's all it is.
It's a record. It's one of the four most important records to own in baseball.
But, Mike, every 3,000 hitter who didn't use PEDs is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that didn't use PEDs, that didn't cheat, is in the Hall of Fame. So, Pete Rose cheated. He's not in the Hall of Fame.
But they got in because of their athletic accomplishment. That's the point. And I think that with Pete Rose, I mean, in my opinion, we can debate, differ, whatever, but the difference to me between the PED users, steroid users, and then Pete Rose is, to me at least, the numbers for those PED users, because the steroid outperformed your competition, you got to put an asterisk beside those. And I just think, you just can't deny the fact, did Pete Rose gamble? Yes. But at the end of the day, he still was able to rack up all these records. And you look at a guy like Barry Bonds, he had the all-time home run leader, but I consider Hank Aaron to be, because I think that Barry Bonds' numbers are just flawed because of the steroid.
I'll give you this. Pete Rose affected actually who won baseball games, just like the steroids guys did. None of them should ever be in. I'm sorry, but they affect the whole season. I mean, you may throw a game here or there, which Pete Rose did. I mean, if you're a gambling addict, and if you know of anybody who's a gambling addict, are you really going to tell me you think there's some there that have sense enough not to bet on what they know the most?
Circumstantial evidence, Mike.
It's not circumstantial when it's right there in front of you. I mean, do you not understand this? This is amazing to me. I mean, do you not know how illegal bookies run if you owe them a lot of money and you're not going to pay them?
Mike, are you saying you owe the bookies a lot of money?
No. I'm saying that I know Steve did. I know how much trouble they gave him when he did.
That's funny.
Mike, I agree. He did the crime, and he's doing his time, and he's done his time. To me, it sticks on penance paid, redemption, forgiveness, athletic ability. I don't deny that he bet on baseball. I give you that. But the commissioner, when he announced his ruling, gave him parole, gave him an opportunity for parole. By the way, he said you can apply for reinstatement. Basically says in our law, you have a chance for parole. And
yeah,
I think at some point in time, it did say that.
No.
Yeah, it just.
But
yeah,
Mike,
it did.
Mike,
It did say.
Okay. Go ahead, Lucas.
In Pete Rose's recent attempt for reinstatement, I think Commissioner Manfred did make mention to that 1970s allegation of sexual misconduct. And
that's proven, by the way.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think that, that incident, again, should keep him out of the hall, but it just seemed like for Commissioner Manfred, he was using that reason. Do you think that he was using that reason when he was talking about the rationale for keeping Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame? Do you think that he was using that, attention, that negative press to influence his decision about whether to reinstate him in baseball? Or do you think solely it's about the gambling thing and that this is going to be the baseball deadly sin that'll never be overturned?
Well, this is the thing. We talked about Pete Rose being allowed for reinstatement after a year, Steve. And that was something.
August 24th.
I know. I'm sitting here
August 24th, 1989.
Hold on.
225-page report. Bart Giamatti bans Pete Rose from
reading
baseball for life for gambling.
Okay.
With the stipulation he may apply for reinstatement after 1 year.
Rose was facing a harsh punishment. All right. So he had Reuben Katz was his agent. Decided to secret compromise with Major League Baseball. On August 24th, 1989, Rose agreed to a lifetime ban from baseball. The agreement had 3 key provisions. Major League Baseball would make no finding of fact regarding gambling allegations and cease their investigation, which means they would stop looking for things, and they did. Rose was neither admitting or denying the charges. And 3, Rose would like to be considered for reinstatement after a year. They agreed to that basically to stop this. And then he lost. I mean,
that doesn't stand up in a court of law, Mike. It does not stand up in a court of law.
This is unreal because this, once again, his lawyer, Reuben
He offered
Katz,
it to him.
No, they made this deal. All right, because Rose wanted a no finding of fact provision. All right, and this is the thing. Reuben Katz, they made this agreement between Major League Baseball, Reuben Katz, and Pete Rose in a court of law. I forget who the judge was. It was Judge, I think, Nadel in 1989. But yeah, that's why that was there. It was basically Rose, by asking them to do that, would not have to admit or deny anything. He could.
If they were going to ban him for life, they should not have made that offer. They should say, no, you can have everything else. We won't.
He asked them to do it in Major League Baseball to make it go away, just agreed to it. They weren't letting him back anyways.
That's bad judgment on baseball's part.
Not really.
Just like it's bad judgment not to consider it. But they offered it. They signed the paperwork and said, you can apply for reinstatement in 1 year.
Yeah.
Parole.
And they let him. So what's the complaint?
Right.
They upheld their end. He upheld his end. He lied for 15 years before telling the truth, and then he didn't get back in. I mean, if you're trying to get parole, usually you got to have time off for good behavior, I think, and it didn't sound like there was too much good behavior there.
Okay.
Josh, you haven't spoken in a while.
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I have to agree with Steve on this. Everything he's saying, he's making a lot of good points. I think it is just, as time goes on, I think that in the next 10 to 15 years, you really are going to see people start to consider him as a Hall of Famer. And I wouldn't be surprised if, this does become a redemption story in the next few years.
Well, in the sad state of this country, it probably will. I mean, hell,
absolutely.
We let Donald Trump be the president. We let everybody get away with whatever they want. Nobody's ever held, or Hillary Clinton
accountable.
Counts in that too. Nobody's ever held accountable for their actions, and I would just like to see somebody held accountable for their actions, and nobody hold him accountable.
But he has, Mike.
No, he hasn't.
He's
He
been in the game
hasn't.
for 30
Not
years.
if they let him
30
in. Yeah, and Joe Jackson's 100 years. And Joe Jackson, if you look at the court proceedings there, pretty good chance he didn't do anything wrong, and he's kept out.
Which is
Yeah, they need to let Joe Jackson in too.
Yeah, they should let Joe Jackson in.
Yeah, because Joe Jackson did nothing wrong. And if you look at Major League Baseball Rule 21, it is clear that he shouldn't get back in. It says any player, umpire, club, or league official or employee who shall bet on any sum whatsoever upon any baseball game in connection with which the bettor has a duty to perform shall be declared permanently ineligible. He's permanently ineligible.
Okay,
He
Mike,
signed that
Mike,
contract.
and tied with that, the difference is that Giamatti and Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who levied that decision on the Black Sox scandal, did not use the words with the ability to apply for reinstatement. He said, "You're banned for life."
Okay.
End of story. Goodbye.
Yeah,
Done.
So he's been declared.
Now,
hey,
but Giamatti comes out and says,
I
"Banned
know.
for life with a chance to reinstatement."
I think what
Major
Major League
faux pas.
Baseball here has done is a joke. I mean, they're letting him go to the All-Century Team thing. They let him go to the stadium with the Reds. They let him go talk to the players. I think it's bullshit. You're right, Steve. He shouldn't be allowed to do anything.
Until he's reinstated, you're right.
No, but God, do you not understand what permanently ineligible means?
Yes, it means Joe Jackson will never get into the Hall of Fame because he was not offered a chance to reapply.
Yeah, he was. Joe Jackson was on the Hall of Fame.
Was on the ballot.
Times. Because
But he couldn't get
those writers threw fit because, I mean, come on, he couldn't even read. I mean, they took advantage of him. The guys like Eddie Cicotti, who had something to do with the thing, you know, they just let him drag him down. And Kennesaw Mountain Landis wasn't about being fair because there was a lot of gambling stuff.
No.
You had Ty Cobb and Tris Speaker in like 1918, 1919 that were accused of the same thing. The only difference there is, well,
And
I
they're
don't
in the
know.
Hall.
Yeah, but this is the thing. You could be in the Hall of Fame if you bet before 1920. Because the sad fact is this rule didn't come into effect until 1921, I think. So
Yeah,
when
that's
you
when
look
the
at
decision was made, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you could show me proof that Tris Speaker and Ty Cobb bet on baseball, I don't think they should be in the Hall of Fame. You know, I'm not saying this because I don't like Pete Rose. I don't, because I know enough other stuff that he did that makes me sick to my stomach. That stuff shouldn't keep him out of the Hall of Fame. That should keep him away from your teenage daughter, but it shouldn't keep you out of the Hall of Fame. But when I look at this, I mean, I'm a Reds fan, and Pete Rose had so many games where he'd leave pitchers in forever, and everybody's wondering why. And, I mean, there was 3-4 second-place finishes where they weren't too far out, where if he did what I think he did, he may have cost the Reds a World Series. I don't think that it is that big of a stretch when you look 85, 86, 87. They're a second-place team just finishing out of the money, about 5 to 6 games back. 88, they're in the running until this breaks. It falls apart. 89 was a complete mess because of the trial. And once this is cleaned up in 1990, you bring Lou Piniella in, and the Reds win the World Series. And it's basically, with the exception of a couple additions, it's basically the same team that Pete Rose was losing with. So, yeah, I mean, I'll let Pete Rose go in the Hall of Fame if they give me all the money back I spent on tickets from 1985 to 1989. Because I really feel like I was screwed. Because when I looked at these games and the games he didn't bet, 2 of them I paid pretty good money back then for tickets. And when you look at it, I don't think it's a coincidence when the 4 games you don't bet are all pitched by the exact same guys, and you leave the exact same starting pitcher in to give up at least 6 to 8 runs every time. And then the next night, you know, you're pitching Mario Soto with John Franco coming out of the bullpen, and Jeff Russell is the middle relief guy. I mean, to me, that's a little bit of a stretch to think that is a coincidence, Steve. And if he did that, I don't see how you could
I don't
ever.
think it's a coincidence.
I don't see how you.
I admit,
ever.
I support you 100% to bet on baseball.
But this is the thing.
He's a gambler.
He
bet.
If he fixed the game,
he did the crime.
How can you have him in the Hall of Fame?
I just think that this is a country of forgiveness, of repentance. He's done his time.
This country
I'm
is
baseball,
forgiveness for certain people.
Baseball cracked the door for him when they said he could apply for reinstatement. They cracked the door.
Not really.
So if there's a crack in the door, yeah. Well, they cracked the door.
Yeah.
They didn't crack the door on the 1919 White Sox. They just said you're banned. Don't come to the stadium again ever in your life.
Steve, they were on the ballot. Do you just ignore our Canadian friend completely all the time?
No, I don't ever ignore him.
Because he told
especially not when the Iditarod starts.
Told you repeatedly. That Joe Jackson was on the ballot.
Mike.
Yes, Canadian.
Did he get in?
You didn't get in.
No.
But the thing is that my question is, do you think that which was worse? Let's ask the full question for you. Do you think that gambling was worse for baseball than the impact of performance-enhancing drugs?
I believe this.
Are you asking? Who are you asking?
I'm asking Mike.
I believe
Mike.
this.
Okay.
I believe there is nothing more serious in professional sports or any sports than somebody that compromises the integrity of the game by betting on it. When you do that, you lose fans. I mean, once people think this is not real anymore or it is fixed, they don't watch. I mean, there is nothing. I mean, steroids, let's face it. If we were going to do that, half the guys in the Hall of Fame aren't going to be in the Hall of Fame for probably any sport. It happens in boxing. It happens in baseball. I think that would just make it legal for everybody to use them. I mean, I'm serious. I don't care. This is the thing.
Wow. The integrity of the game.
The integrity of the game is not affected if everybody's allowed to do it. But
well, hang on.
This is the thing.
In Mike's defense, in Mike's defense, Mike, didn't we have this conversation, you and I, the other day, that steroids weren't even banned for baseball until what year? Like the 80s sometime?
They were actually the early 2000s, wasn't it? I'm not sure, Josh.
Yeah,
that year?
You could use steroids legally up until that point. So there's no doubt that gambling is the worst crime anybody could ever commit toward a professional or an amateur sport. I mean, there's no doubt about that because Mike's, in all points to Mike's defense, he's absolutely right. That destroys the integrity of any sport, delegitimizes it, and does everything bad. I've never denied that, Pete. But the steroids thing, like I said, didn't even come in vogue until, like, I guess it was the early 2000s or something of that. You could take steroids in the 80s and 70s, and you weren't breaking any baseball rules. So, that's a big gray area right there.
Josh, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Josh, what year did they put that in the rules that you couldn't use steroids? That was after the home run thing, wasn't it?
It was after the home run thing. I'd have to check. I'm going to look it up right now, the actual year. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I know Mike and I had that conversation.
All right, Lukas.
It looks like the 2003 season. It's 2003 is when testing for steroids began.
Yeah, so see, they weren't even testing for it, Lukas. And Major League Baseball knew it was going on. And I'll tell you, as a fan watching, it's kind of obvious that something's going on when Brady Anderson, who never hits more than like 15 home runs a year, is hitting 50 all of a sudden. But people were all right with it because it was saving baseball. Nobody had a problem with it.
Baseball.
Yeah.
It did save.
Okay, so wait a second. Hear me out, because this is my complete answer to your question. You're asking me which one is worse? Are you seriously asking me that? There is no redeeming value in Pete Rose fixing a game or betting on a game. But you just asked me which one was worse. And 90% of the people that voted on our site voted that steroids was worse. But you just told me, even though...
What?
Wait. You know where I'm going? You be quiet and let me finish this. All right? This is the thing. You just said that steroids saved baseball. So, did Pete Rose betting on baseball save it? Huh?
From an economic, no, Mike. I said it saved baseball from an economic point of view, not from a moral point of view.
This is the thing.
It's not great for Barry Bonds to have an unfair advantage and to skew the numbers. It's not fair. Those
It's not
numbers
fair.
are not.
Yeah, but you know what? This is the thing.
And Pete Rose's hit, more often than not, were more authentic than Barry Bonds' home runs with steroids.
Once again, we are not talking about the hits. And Barry Bonds was one of the greatest players that ever lived before the steroids. Barry Bonds, Pete Rose wouldn't make a pimple on Barry Bonds' ass before steroids or after steroids. I mean, Barry Bonds was a guy that before steroids was hitting 35 to 40 home runs, stealing, 80 or 90 bases and batting 330.
And that's what's sad, Mike. That's what's sad. These guys didn't need to use the performance-enhancing drugs because they're all-time great players.
Let me ask you this. In the end, Barry Bonds made how much more money because he did?
Still doesn't make it right.
I'm not saying that. But you know what? You can say it doesn't make it right. But if I walked in right now and somebody walked in and said, "Here, Lukas, you take this pill and you'll actually not suck when you talk to Mike and Steve and try to debate stuff," you'd take it in a heartbeat.
No, I wouldn't. Because I'm better right now without the pill. I'm better without the pill.
Oh, I just knocked you out. It's time for you to be quiet, Lukas. Josh.
Touche, well played,
Josh,
Mike.
you got anything to say since you're an American and not a Canadian?
Hey,
like I said, I don't think that. I think that steroids should be allowed in MLB in the first place. I think it makes the game way more exciting.
Well, see, I
would
think
like to
what
see
people
everyone
miss,
using,
Josh, is this. I remember watching a real sports study, and then I went and looked it up. With the American Medical Association, there is no proof at all that prolonged steroid use affects you in a negative way. The only time it affects you in a negative way is if you don't cycle off when you're supposed to and you continue to use it. I know this because I had a football player that played for me that he didn't cycle off. He used this for 2 years straight. He couldn't walk. Other guys I know guys that work out the gym I work out, 70 years old, been using steroids since he was 20. And the thing is this, they try to demonize the steroid abuse, but you got a guy like Brett Favre, and everybody talks about what a great Iron Man he was, but let's face it, the only reason he played all those games straight is because he was hopped up on Vicodin. That's a
this is my thought on.
drug.
Well, this is my thoughts on steroids, and I'm sure everyone has their opinions. As long as it's not a contact sport like football, where having that, where CTE plays a big, baseball is such a technical sport, so you're not going to have a lot of human-to-human contact in that game. It's very limited. So I would like to see steroids in that. I wouldn't care. I guess I wouldn't say I would like to see, but I wouldn't mind if they were in that arena because you'd only make the game more interesting. Whereas, like in MMA, I kind of have a problem with steroids insofar as the fact that, then you've got these two guys beating the crap out of each other and, that steroids could make it deadly at some point, not so much in baseball.
Yeah, but the other thing is this: with the football or with the boxing, the football, the MMA, they all use it anyways. They just know when to get off of it. It's just like the thing with Canelo Alvarez where he tested positive. He tested positive because they came in a week earlier and he thought they were going to. I mean, these guys in boxing,
they know when to cycle off.
Yeah, most of the testing, the last test will be like 8 weeks before the fight. And, I mean, that's when you start training. So they actually use this stuff for the 2 months before, and then they cycle off of it for the 2 months while they train after that. So you get all your conditioning in when you're using the PEDs.
Well, look at John Jones. This guy got caught using a steroid that was developed by the Germans to be undetectable, and he just cycled off it, like they said, 15 hours too late, and that's how he got caught. These guys are pros at doing it, and everyone is doing it. And it wouldn't surprise me if there was guys like J.D. Martinez on the Red Sox was doping. I mean, I think it's so widespread, even to a very small percent, even if it's just because PEDs could be. It's such a wide spectrum of things. I think it'd be inaccurate to say that there's a lot of guys not going up to that line, if not crossing it just a little bit. So at this point, I mean, I just don't see why they just don't allow it. It's not like it. I don't understand the thought process behind that. Like, I would love to see 1 million smashed home runs. I think it'd be fun. It'd probably bring MLB a lot more money.
Oh,
I would love to see Joe Kelly. I would love to see Joe Kelly get some roid rage, and then these two guys just put on a boxing exposition, and right there on the mound. Like, that's what I want to see. And then right afterwards, they go crush 100 home runs.
We can have Josh on more. He's not
man.
like Lukas. Lukas isn't talking about loving people fighting each other all the time. Ain't that right, Lukas?
He's a Canadian. That means he likes hockey, which I think that means he likes fighting.
Hockey. Canadians are pacifists, though, aren't they? Has Canada ever been in a war, Lukas? That we didn't have to win for them?
The war beat. We
didn't have to win.
Yeah. Like I said, have you been in a war that we didn't have to win for you?
No, we won it. Where were you in World War I and World War II at the start, Mike?
Actually, World War I is a war that, if you look at it historically, we never should have been involved in. So, I'll give you that. That's
another topic for another day.
We came in late innings and we helped you win. We were the relief pitchers on that one.
We're like the John Franco for Canada and England, which is why England lost in the World Cup. Steve, you got anything
else
to add?
The only thing I say about the steroid thing is that there are a lot of people that have taken steroids that have not hit 70 home runs or 770 home runs, or it still takes talent. Even if you're using the steroids and you use them properly, you're still a lot of guys who use them that have not achieved the records that the great players have achieved. So I still think that component of steroids, talent still comes into play an awful lot.
Yeah, but most of your power records were destroyed by the steroid guys, Steve.
Exactly. Yeah. But like I said, there are a lot of guys that were great baseball players that I'm sure took steroids that never were able to. They didn't have the talent. So I'm ambivalent on steroids. I see all sides of it. If there's danger to the person, then they shouldn't be used. But
you know what? That curls my toes when Lukas says, "Mike." Go ahead, Lukas.
Do you think that? Well, I'm trying to get your attention. Sometimes it's tough. But anyway, do you think that guys like Bonds, Clemens, who are on the last ballot, do you think that they'll ever get into the Hall of Fame?
Probably. I think Bonds and Clemens were so great before the steroids even that it's harder to keep them off. I think eventually they will. I think eventually someday Pete Rose will. Do I think it's right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do I think it's right? With the steroid guys, since it was not illegal, I find it hard to keep them out just because of that. It's just like if you bet on baseball before 1919, there was no rule about it. So it makes it really hard to enforce something after the fact. If that makes sense.
That's fair.
All right, so we all agree I won. All right, anybody got anything else?
No.
I would like to say this. I think Steve made some great points. Josh made some great points. Lukas, you were just taking up space today. You got to get
I
was the one making the points to start things off. I was the one trying to show you that the Hall of Fame is not just a Hall of Sainthood. So, Mike, get off your high horse.
It ain't a sainthood thing. I tried to show you that if you fix games, it's a bad thing. And you thought, let's face it, you lost me completely when you asked me what was worse, and you said that steroids help the game and that betting on the game hurts the game, and then you still ask me which was worse.
No, because I think it's a fair question.
I don't think so. You obviously lost this bad, Lukas, out of all four.
No, well, here's what I think. This is what I heard. I heard all four of us all say this in some fashion. Despite Mike taking one side of the fence and us taking the other side of the fence, we all four said it. We all believe eventually Pete Rose will get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and it's wrong.
Correct.
Yeah. So we all said that.
Yep.
So therefore, Mike, I don't know how you claim victory, but we all four said
because
we all believe at some point
be in.
But we all agree he will get in.
Yeah. I also, know that whoever would have won between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, we were screwed too. It doesn't make it right. It just makes it the way it is.
It was cream of the crap there.
We have basically...
That was cream of the crap.
We have a country that has gone soft, And everybody is, kissing everybody's ass and everything, and we all got to be happy. So don't let him in. But he's a despicable human being that did despicable things on and off the field. All right.
Now he's reading Otter's speech from Animal House.
Yeah.
If you indict the entire educational system, aren't you really indicting the colleges? And if you're indicting the colleges, aren't you really indicting the country, the United States of America? Well, I'm not going to stand here and let you badmouth the United States of America. Goes right out of Animal House.
All right, Josh, you got any final words?
No, I think we covered just about everything today.
All right, Lukas, do you have anything intelligent to say yet? It's been an hour.
Well, you guys are talking about how America's going south. I'm in comfortable Canada, so I'm happy.
Okay. God save the Queen, Lukas. God save the Queen.
Yeah. Here.
All right, Steve.
No, I think Trump's meeting the Queen today, isn't he?
I have no
Yes.
idea.
They're having tea together this afternoon.
And guys,
No, I had a lot of fun. I thought it was a good debate. I definitely see both sides of it. Pete Rose, I never admitted that Pete Rose didn't bet. I mean, I believe he did bet on baseball. I believe he's guilty, and I think he'll eventually get in the Hall of Fame, regardless of that.
All right, guys. You can hear us again Monday on Survive in Advance. We have a couple big guests lined up, maybe more than a couple. Keep an eye out on Twitter at Grueling Truth, at Survive the Magic. Go to Facebook, like our page. Go find Lukas and harass him on Facebook. So we're done for today. You can now hear the Grueling Truth on Spotify, also with iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher. Literally now, wherever you find a podcast, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So for Josh Raymond Castro, Lukas Weese, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.